What's up guys, DukeSloth here, and today we're taking a first look at the updates notes, patch notes for SMITE patch 5.3, Hero of the Trojan War, release patch of Achilles. This patch has a lot of things going on. We will talk about Achilles first and a bit about the skins and then mostly the balance part afterwards. But let's begin with Achilles, who is also part of the balance part in his own right already. We have a bit of a picture here of him, you can see. What you can see in this picture is his armored version. He also has a topless version for the ladies out there, because he has two different forms which are in his passive, Gift of the Gods. So he can either wear armor, and that is something he decides in base, and that way he gets extra health, 35 plus 10 health per level, and 5 plus 1 protection per level. Or he can go unarmored, and that happens by clicking while in base. I think it's just left click, basic attack in base, and it will change over. And then he will get a 3% movement speed plus 0.25% per level, and he gets 10 plus 2 physical power per level. And that's interesting because that actually makes him the fastest guard in the game at the start, I think, because his base value is already 370, and with that movement speed buff, he's somewhere around 390 something, I think. So he is gonna be really fast. And he is a warrior, but at the same time, this passive kind of allows him to be, to some degree, an assassin as well. And everything else in his kit is kind of like this bruiser hybrid in-between style, where he can either be a warrior or an assassin, depending on how you want to play him. He's probably going to be very impactful either ways. So, we have Shield of Achilles, that's one. Achilles punches forward with the edge of his shield, inflicting massive damage and stunning enemy targets hit by the impact. The force of his punch continues to radiate past his initial target area, dealing 80% damage to targets further away. So it's a cone attack. The cone is massive. I think it's like Amaterasu old cone size. It's just very hard to miss. The first half of the cone, which is a very decent range still, will stun, and the further range does not stun and only does 80% of the damage. The close range does 100 to 340 damage plus 90% scaling, relatively high, and keep in mind, a massive AoE, you can clear a whole wave with that. And the stun duration goes up from 1.1 to 1.5 seconds, so also a good interrupt in that regard. Very, very good. Cooldown, 15 seconds, a little more on the longer side in return. Mana cost 6380. Radiant Glory. Achilles is blessed by the gods, giving him bonus physical power, protections, and crowd control reduction for 6 seconds. While this blessing is active, Achilles will heal himself upon successfully damaging enemies with abilities. The heal is 23 to 35, but it also scales with 10% of your physical power. Now, 10% scaling isn't too crazy when you consider how much power you have to build to really get a benefit out of that, but the ability can hit multiple targets. However, this is depending on the rank of the ability. The max heals per ability on rank 1 and 2 is 2, on rank 3 and 4 it's 3, and on rank 5 you can heal from 4 targets at the same time. So maybe this is something you might want to consider using in solo lane, leveling second in solo lane, in order to sustain better in the lane just through the extra heals that you can get from minions as well. Depending on how much power you have, obviously heal more as well. And it applies for every ability that you use, but I think it's primarily something you use in combination with the 1. Then you also get 15% bonus power, pretty decent for both solo and jungle, for either a damage carry build or a tank build. Just having that little bit of extra power that you otherwise won't get, or just having a massive power boost. Then you get bonus protections, 15%, same thing here. Either a little bit of protections to a character that otherwise doesn't have that much, or a massive boost to someone who already has a lot. So hybrid builds on him will definitely be very beneficial. I'm especially looking at items like Gladiator's Shield here, which would even give him more power and CDR as well, and that self-heal on top of the self-heal. And the 20% crowd control reduction is something that I think would also often be undervalued. 20% is like half of the max already, I think, and it can be impactful on certain CCs, so definitely good. 10 seconds cooldown, but I think this one works in a way where the cooldown starts after the ability is over, so a total of basically from the moment you use it until you can use it again, it should be 16 seconds. 40 to 60 mana, not that expensive. Then you have Combat Dodge. Achilles dodges his enemy's attacks before striking in the swift response. If Achilles successfully hits an enemy god with his strike, Achilles can use this ability once more before it goes on cooldown. It actually looked like the ability goes through targets as well. I'm not 100% sure, but that's what it seemed to be. The damage goes from 65 to 225 with 50% scaling, but keep in mind that you can use this twice if you hit a guard. So if you're chasing a guard, you basically have 450 damage and 100% scaling. And that's on a 10-second cooldown. That can also easily be used to, like, you know, avoid someone when you're getting chased. You can also cancel the attack. So you can dodge away, use your one, stun them, use the damaging ability afterwards and dodge again. So you can have like 6 seconds to use it before it goes on cooldown entirely. So pretty good. And if you use it as a double dodge while someone is already chasing you, then I think you have a pretty good potential of getting away from them that way. If you just turn around and throw the spear at them. So very high survivability if you build a little bit bruiser just based on that. But we're not even done. We also have Fatal Strike. Achilles winds up a large attack and dashes forward. While dashing, Achilles will pass through minions, stop and hit the first enemy guard he encounters, dealing damage to all he hits. If the guard is below 30% health, they are executed. If Achilles successfully executes an enemy with this ability, he can use it again up to 5 times. As Achilles successfully executes his enemies, he becomes more reckless in combat and leaves his heel exposed. Achilles will become more susceptible to damage, stacking up to 5 times. Damage 180 to 540 plus 100% physical power scaling. Execute threshold 30%. Damage taken increase 10% per stack. Cooldown 90 seconds. Now there are a few interactions here where I'm not entirely sure about. Because, for example, there was something mentioned that he can cancel after the first charge. So basically you could use other abilities in between to get someone else under threshold again or not. I'm not sure if that's correct in the final version of the game that they're running right now. We'll find out. But either way, it's going to be a very strong ultimate. Repeat execute, just scary. Like, a single target execute is already scary, and a repeat ability upon killing someone like Scylla's ultimate is scary. Having both in the same kit on a warrior is super, super scary, and the ability outside of that still deals a lot of damage, and the 40% damage increase is the max you're gonna get, because by the time you get the 50% damage increase taken, all enemies are dead. You can get killed by minions maybe, but that's it. And at that point you don't care if you die. So most of the time you won't get more than 30% damage increase, I think. And you will still have more than half the team wiped out, so the rest will just run away. It's scary. I feel like he should almost get the double the damage taken increase at least for it to be fair. Overall, he feels very strong, a lot of scaling, a lot of healing, a lot of mobility, survivability, decent CC, not crazy CC, but decent CC, and both as a warrior as well as both as a solo lane warrior as well as a jungle assassin type of character. I think he'd be very, very, very dangerous. I would suggest building a little bit bruiser, though you can even just go for the assassin version of him and then late game switch over to the armored version if you want to, for example, to get some defense that way. Yeah, so that is pretty scary. Here is his recolor. Unfortunately, you can't see that any better. Basically blue cloth, brown hair. We can see the shirtless version here though. And that brings us to the guard skins. Quick look at those as usual. I will just go with the normal versions of the skins here and hope that they are fine. We'll start with Kage Ratatosker. Their new Ratatosker skin, anime style again with these outlines and everything. Can't see them here really. A different voice pack though, a bit more cruel than the other one. I think this one is probably my fave out of the bunch. Then we have a Abyssal Warrior Sun Wukong skin. The one on this looks really cool because it creates this kind of like abyssal rift as we have in the middle of the map now. His transformations are just purple versions of the transformation. I think those are a bit, could have been better, but at the same time I can see why they didn't do full remodels for all of them. Voice pack is decent skin. The Countess Chunga, I think is a really cool skin. It's basically a vampire skin. She does most of the voice lines in this one, but the animations are really cool and definitely worth checking out because I really like those. Then we have the Fafnir Leprechaun skin, and yes, that in the background is actually his dragon form. He's basically this cartoon-style dragon, which I think is really funny. Not sure, it's not my typical style of skin, but I think it's just funny to look at, and it's gonna be funny to see it in your games. And then, last but not least, we have Easter Bunny Nua, which is basically just Playboy Bunny Nua all the way, literally the entire skin, with the exception of the peeps, which are minions, which are these, well, Easter peep kind of thingos. And they are super funny. They have their own sounds as well within the voice pack and everything. And I think they're the reason to play the skin if you're not into that type of skin otherwise. All right, quick run through the voice packs as usual. Make sure to turn on your headphones if you're a headphone user. This could be loud. 3, 2, 1, let's go.
These fools need to get out of my forest! Don't you see the no trespassing sign? There isn't room for everyone!
Foolish mortals. Now they will realize the true power of the undead.
The moon is bright and the night is young. These mortals don't stand a chance.
You must feel very lucky. I am a rare sight, you see.
Hello, it's nice to meet you. These are my marshmallow friends. Sticky, Fluffy, and... oh yeah, that's Bob. Say hi, Bob.
Hey.
All right, bug fixes. Most of these are like smaller glitches. The only one that I think is very relevant is the Cuchulainn one. Fix an issue where Cuchulainn would be healed for an incorrect amount from Meditation Cloak, because somehow the mana was factored in wrong and he would get a ridiculous amount of heal. Then we have the most important change of the patch. Adjusted the DJ skins Base Drop Janus, DJ Om Ganesh, and Heaven's Rave Zeus so that they can move with their VXG emotes active. You can rave all across the map now. Best change. Ranked gets some little changes, draft time adjustments. The planning phase is decreased from 30 seconds to 15 seconds, and the bank time is decreased from 60 to 40 seconds. Good changes, make it a little less tedious with the wait time. Some booster changes, making them a little cheaper, and the 15-day boosters removed. And there are two, while active, boosters will provide 30 plus fantasy points each time a player claims their daily login bonus. This could be nice for some who use boosters. And then we have added Rainbow Recall skin and Rainbow Level Up skin as well. I think this might be tied to the Fafnir skin somehow. Console players can now have access to use all VGS commands. And in order to do that, you basically use the same ones as before, but you have the shoulder buttons being used as well, which I think is pretty good, pretty neat. Finally have all VGS commands over there. Then in non-conquest modes, you have Attacker's Blessing, Defender's Blessing, and Specialist Blessing finally back in the game. And in Conquest, we have the Oracle's health adjusted. Pretty crucial change, I think. The base health is decreased from 760 to 680, and the scaling per level, which is all 3 minutes, is increased from 100 to 110. Meaning they won't be easy to kill early one, but they will be easier than before. They were really hard to kill before, so you can look at them more like as duo or as a jungler with someone else, the mid laner maybe, and secure them for your team. Decreased base power of Big Centaur, Big Manticore, Big Chimera, and Big Satyr from 24 to 18, meaning they deal a lot less damage early in the game, which is also interesting because as a jungler, certain junglers, not everyone, you often had to pop like an early health pot at the first camps. This might mean that that's no longer the case and you can clear without them because it's going to be a fair bit less damage taken. Items. Soul Gem. Soul Gem's passive has been redesigned to make its interaction with god abilities more consistent. The gods can successfully hit a target with an ability, including non-damaging abilities, to gain stacks. However, stacks will only be consumed and trigger the bonus effect on damaging abilities. On successful hit of an ability, you gain 1 stack. Now, what's unfortunate here, it doesn't say if a dot would count as multiple hits. Probably not. Probably not how it's intended, at least. It's probably just going to be 1 stack per ability. At 4 stacks, your next ability that damages an enemy god will deal bonus damage equal to 40% of your magical power and will heal yourself and allies within 20 units for 40% of your magical power and consume the 4 stacks. It's interesting because before this, the stack effect was possible through basic attacks, but it was 1 stack more. So it's easier in some regards and harder in others, I suppose. What I think is interesting is that it works on any ability. So if a Hel was to use her cleanse and her heal on an ally and then the wave clear, then using the one on another ally afterwards would give them an extra 40% scaling heal if they're nearby. At the same time, you have to invest in the scaling or the power to make it worth it. But it could be a nice addition in that regard. Damage-wise, it was already very strong before, but if you want to maximize your damage, you'd always build Polynomicon over it because Polynomicon just gets more scaling. But this way is more of a safer option for extra damage from range, and I could definitely see it being used by a few, minimum. Then we have Doom Up. Update itself affects when Duma's passive buff is active, because it looked like Sprint before. I hope it looks cool still, but yeah, it's changed. Typhon's Fang. Typhon's Fang allows mages to build into heavily lifesteal strategies. Yeah. This option can be powerful, but we want to make sure it comes with the cost of other utility stats. At 15% base lifesteal and 50% bonus healing, mages could build a single lifesteal item, Bankrupts most often, and gain large benefits. By reducing the lifesteal and bonus healing on this item, players will need to invest more into lifesteal to get similar amounts of sustain. I think the issue maybe was more with Bankrupts than Typhons. I think there's an issue with Typhons, but I think the interaction between the two is what makes this so busted. And I think the other issue that Typhons has is it scales with all lifesteal now, even like base lifesteal off a god. I think taking away bonus lifesteal from Bankrupts would have been the smarter choice. And then maybe some adjustments to Typhons, but well, we're working with Typhons, and we have a magical lifesteal decrease from 15 to 10%, so it scales less with itself as well, basically, with the passive. And decreased passive healing bonus from off lifesteal from 50% to 40%. Still pretty good on like heavy lifestealers. I don't think it makes much of a difference for Anubis or Freya, but not quite as over the top in many situations. Good change in the right direction. That's what I will say. Probably still built by a few less gods than before. Warlock Staff. Warlock Staff has become a dominant choice for mages that provides early game power, mid game survivability, and a solid power scaling into the late game, reducing the early power and scaling power it gains, focusing its identity as a solid survivability foundation for mages. I've talked about this item in 2 different videos already, not much to say. This nerf was absolutely needed. Decreased power from 75 to 65, decreased power per stack from 0.6 to 0.5. Warlock Staff now provides 115 magical power when fully evolved, down from 135. I was thinking that was exactly what they will do with it, and that was exactly the nerf it needed, so I'm absolutely 100% happy with this. This is literally my guess before I even knew what the change was, so yes, good. Proceed. Book of the Dead. Book of the Dead provides a powerful effect. Mages can heavily increase their chances to survive with this single item. We want to preserve the item's identity, but we have seen this effect provide too much shielding in most gameplay scenarios. Decrease 35% to 15% mana used to form shield. Drastic decrease, 10% decrease, like almost half away. Understandable, it was just way too strong, and I think that's gonna be the end of like the whole book Warlock Staff stacking thing in every single game. It will still be a thing, just not all the time. I think especially Book of the Dead got hit hard here. I wish we just had old Book of the Dead. I preferred that one still, but it's definitely an option that can still be considered, but not as overwhelmingly strong, and probably not a priority choice for many anymore. It might need like a slight price decrease in return, maybe. And now we get to the change that I'm going to complain about. Malice. Malice and Deathbringer have often been a complicated math problem to determine which item was superior. We are redesigning Malice to focus more on ability damage characters who like to build critical strike chance. As players accumulate critical strikes, they begin to empower the next ability with a large boost in physical power. Decreased physical power from 50 to 40. Increased critical strike chance from 20 to 25%. New passive. Every critical strike against an enemy god gives 1 stack. At 3 stacks, your next ability that damages an enemy god will consume the stacks and deal bonus damage over time to the first god hit for 120% of your physical power. Damage is dealt in 3 ticks over 2 seconds. Alright, let's pretend for 1 second, to make this more understandable, that Naja doesn't exist. Just for 1 second, alright? We get back to that. Hunbats and Serqet can still exist. You have an item that has less power, 10 power less, even though it's supposedly focused around ability-focused assassins, or hunters, assassins. Ability-focused characters that want to build crit. Less power than before, not good for them. Increased critical strike chance from 20 to 25%. Yeah, that makes more than up for it. 20, like we've talked about, this 5% crit chance is a good increase in the benefits of the item. But 5% crit chance doesn't mean you get that many crits either. Not if it's your only crit item. And Malice was this only crit item. A single crit with Malice previously would deal 75% of the power as a dot, I think. 75. Decent amount. A single crit with Malice now will do nothing. A second crit with Malice will do nothing. And only when you hit the third crit, will actually do nothing still. You have to hit 3 crits before you do anything. Before you do anything. That's the important thing. It's not like after 3 crits, something happens. And that's awkward. Because you know how long it takes to have 3 crits on a character. Maybe this is something that's thought to be used in like laning phase. And then you build into more crit afterwards. So you stack the medals over time while trading with an opponent. You get the occasional crit. And eventually you can use it once. And you can all in them. But that's not going to happen when this item was way too expensive to be built early in the laning phase. So assuming a single trade or a team fight where you just have a limited amount of shots with a 25% crit chance, getting 3 crits takes you quite a while. And then afterwards you have to land an ability. So you have to hit an ability on an enemy guard in order to get the bonus damage. And then you get 120%. Again, before you get 75%, and that would be a total of 225% over 3 crits already. So that's all damage that you lost. Now you get this 120%. But it's also one instance, and people that read the patch notes will know, okay, Malice does a truckload of damage now when it hits. I pop my Aegis right now. I negate that damage. And now he has to stack Malice again 3 times. Good luck with that in the same fight. That's not going to happen. And that's not all. That's not all. It's like Heartseeker gives you 100% extra scaling after 5 basic attacks. 5 basic attacks will always be easier to confirm than 3 crits, like especially if you just have one 25% crit item. And any minion stacks Heartseeker. You can just hit jungle camps and use it as an engage tool. Crits on metas only happen on guards. Like, only then can you get the benefit. If it was against minions, this would be a totally different story, because if you could double stack that with Heartseeker and then kaboom, that's a 220% scaling right off the bat. But it's just not very good like this, I think. The higher crit chance helps a little bit, but it's just irritating. And then the only exception is Naja, because Naja gets 3 free crits in his ultimate and can suddenly make massive use out of Malice afterwards. But even that's awkward because most targets are dead afterwards. So yeah, only if you have a follow-up target. So I guess, you know, it's the Naja item now. And no one else can really make proper use of it. So that's just strange. It's just way less damage in almost any situation. And it takes so much for a single proc of it. 3 crits plus an ability. Come on. Really? Really? Well, whatever. Moving on. Malice is pretty dead, I think. I'm going to try around with Naja, and that's it. Rage. Deathbringer increased critical strike damage. Malice provides additional burst for critting enemy guards, and Rage is now definitely the critical strike chance item. Players are looking for consistent crits. Should be building and stacking Rage. Increased cost from 2,400, to 2,500. I need to breathe. Decreased physical power from 30 to 20. High stormed. And increased critical strike chance per stack from 1% to 2%. Rage Jump provides 40% total critical strike chance when fully evolved, up from 35%. Now, this is interesting because it gets more expensive and it has less stacks, less power. It takes same time to stack, but when it's fully stacked, it's another 5% crit chance. It makes it very easy to get to a very high amount of crit chance. Like, you can add you can add your Deathbringer and then your Malice now, and you'll actually get good damage out of that, I guess. But the benefit that I mostly see is like Wind Demon or Poison Star. That's where I place Rage now. You combine that with one of them and then Deathbringer, and you have a lot of crit damage and a lot of crit chance. And I think for that's going to be good. But all of them also have less power overall. So you have to build your power elsewhere for it to be effective. And I'm really not sure if that's going to be able to compete with non-crit builds. Interesting change, however. We haven't seen anything of Rage in a long time. So I could see this being good for it potentially. Soul Eater. Soul Eater struggles to get online quickly enough and lacks a punch when fully upgraded. We're reducing the stacks needed to evolve Soul Eater while increasing the physical power it gains from being evolved. Decreased stacks needed from 100 to 75. Increased bonus physical power unevolved from 10 to 20. Soul Eater now provides 60 physical power and fully evolved, up from 50. I think this is interesting because Soul Eater was always just like item that was edging somewhere underneath the other items. It's like this wannabe kind of Devils, but Devils was just always better. Devils got some nerfs. Soul Eater got some buffs now. Soul Eater stacks quicker. Soul Eater like even quicker now, and Soul Eater gets more power. 60 power on this item is good. It's really good. I think some gods can make very good use from 60 power plus 10% CDR plus some lifesteal. The ability lifesteal is still a bit clunky, but if you're not fully focused on lifesteal, you just still want a decent amount of power and you want some CDR, I think that's your item now. And I think even some ability-based hunters can utilize it better. Maybe in a combination with Transcendence especially, something like that. I could see it being more viable than before. Then we have Warrior's Blessing. Warrior's Blessing. We've seen a lot of experimentation in solo lane, and Warrior's Blessing is slightly underperformed. Yes, well, underperforming probably, compared to different starts. That is, unless a kill occurred in lane. We're bringing up the reward for evolving it while reducing its potential to suddenly spike in stacks with a single kill. Increase evolved bonus protections from 10-10 to 15-15, so physical and magical. Decrease the stacks gained from guards from 5 to 3. The second part doesn't really matter. You stack that thing with trading so quickly, it's super easy. Like, you shouldn't have any issues stacking Warrior's Blessing unless you're playing super passive. At the same time, the bonus protection might actually make this more worthwhile. That's been one of the issues, like that the better choice early on was often just going to like a tier 2 defense item, which gives you more protection. Still a bit of an issue because often you want to counter build. That's what solo lane is all about. In that context, yeah, still not ideal, but I think it has its niche now. I think I could see it being used more. Then we have Hunter's Blessing. Adjusted the item, how the item provides basic attack damage. This fixes a few issues where this item interacted with various abilities and systems in the game. This item now better interacts with hit chain progression, abilities that scale with basic attack damage, and a few edge cases and scenarios. In some cases, this is a buff for characters, anyone with a slower hit chain, which is pretty much almost no one because this is mostly used by hunters or basic attack mages and they don't have slow hit chains. In others, this is a nerf for the characters. The Morrigan's passive, which doesn't scale as highly, so probably rip Hunter's Blessing on Morrigan. Unfortunate, I really like that. And more interestingly, they say it's profitable for anyone with a slower hit chain, so it probably scales with the hit chains, but that probably also means it's not profitable for anyone with a faster hit chain. And that's actually a nerf for Kali, for Arachne, for any hit chain focused assassin or even warrior that was picking it up. I think Erlong, probably his dog, something there will also have an effect there. I know there was some wonky stuff going on there. So Erlong as well in some way will all get nerfed here. So I don't think it's a buff for many, but a nerf for more. I just hope they kind of separate the basic attack damage in a way that it doesn't affect structures anymore. That's apparently not happening still. And now we finally come down to guard balance. Long patch. Arachne, web. Reduced cooldown from 18 seconds to 16 seconds. Can now have 3 webs at once, up from 2. This is very interesting because this means that she can do some very interesting starting strategies, like putting webs at all early camps if you're really quick, like with going on the map, or like maybe even something wonky like putting 2 webs at the enemy, at your ally's red buff and your ally's purple buff, and then you leech the XP from the other side of the map and get like a really early level up somewhere that might help you snowball if your allies clear out those camps. Could be interesting to see what happens with that, and I think it will definitely help her. She struggles a lot with the jungle clear, so she definitely needs some sort of tool for that. Or you could just, drop 3 webs on the same camp and just super fast clear it. But yeah, overall, definitely something that I think we should keep in mind and see what it does for Ragnar. It's probably not going to make a top tier, but definitely a buff with keeping in mind with some other changes from this patch as well. Like, for example, a new Soul Eater could do, could see a Ragnar somehow. Cerberus has struggled since its release to really make an impact for his team. We're increasing his ability to deal damage, engage, and giving him the ability to attack his enemies that are caught in Seek Entombment immediately. Additionally, Seek Entombment will now activate all of his heads, allowing him to combo more directly with Paralyzing Spit. So, this is very interesting. Ghastly Breath. Increased tick damage from 15 to 55 to 20 to 60. A little bit of extra damage per tick, which over all the ticks that it does is quite a fair bit. Soul Expulsion increased the range from 40 to 50, making it less clunky. Very good. I like that kind of stuff. Stygian Torment decreased post-fire from 1.4 to 0.1. That's pretty heavy. That is a jump that we haven't seen in a long time. I think the last time we had like something similar to that was like the wind-up on Xingtian's Soul or something. Cerberus is now crippled for 1.2 seconds after firing this abilities. He's also knock-up and knockback immune for 1.2 seconds though. This ability now auto-activates all 3 heads. And that means if you use this, you have a very easy way of dealing damage to the enemy, and you have a very easy way of throwing them towards your team or wherever, throwing them wherever really, if they don't beat at the end of this, and confirming a fully stacked 1 with all 3 heads, extra damage, and the extra stun right away. And that's gonna hurt. I think it makes him a bit of a one-trick pony, but it definitely makes him a lot more scary than before. Honestly, I think Cerberus was just not good before. I think he was pretty trash, and even multiple people that mastered him like all the way to Diamond said it was a torture, he was not worth playing. Thank God this is over. So I can definitely see these changes having an impact, and Cerberus being in a more viable, if not very viable place. I think it's good. And Freya gets her nerfs. Some people are going to be sad. I'm very happy. Freya is busted. Freya has taken off with the new changes in Season 5, specifically around the itemization, note Hunter's Blessing, and the overall pacing changes in the Conquest map. While the early game is weaker than most, it isn't weak enough to offset a powerful late game. Very true. We are reducing the amount of sustain she can provide herself in the early and mid stages of the game, while reducing the top end damage of Irradiate. Players should have more opportunity to punish her in the early game and the late game respectively. So her passive gets a change for the magical lifesteal from 15% to 5% plus 0.5% per level, ending at 15%. So this is just an early game hit for her. At the same time, Irradiate decreased damage from 40 to 100 to 35 to 95 and decreased the magical scaling power from 25% to 20% per shot. So Irradiate takes a good chunk in terms of trading damage. You know, it's a 1v1 ability. So that's a heavy hit in that regard, I would say. 5% scaling per hit and a little bit of base damage down, that has an impact. And her passive at the same time is more something that makes her not as sustainy in lane. I think both changes are fair. I think especially in combination with the Typhoon Snipe as well, Freya is hopefully going to be in a better place than before, because the place she was in was not okay. Let's see how it develops from here. Overall, good changes, probably placing it down. Not S plus anything anymore. More in line with other characters. But probably still not terrible. Capri. We're taking a closer look at Guardians now that Season 5 has settled down some. Capri is the first Guardian we will be adjusting, and surely it won't be the last. Capri has been nerfed many times since his release, but in Season 5 he has hit a new low for performance. We're giving him slightly more mobility by reducing Abduct's cooldown. We're also buffing his clearly least impressive ability, Solar Flare, that had a strangely high cooldown. Abduct decreased cooldown from 15 to 14 seconds, and Solar Flare decreased cooldown from 18 seconds to 16 seconds. Now, I can absolutely agree with the changes. Better nerf Capri meme is finally over. He's getting some buffs. I haven't seen Capri much as of late. Sometimes, but not often. Glad he's getting some buffs here and there. Hopefully coming back a little bit. I want to play Capri again. I'm happy. And I think a lot of the guys in the comment section, a lot of you guys, will be too, because I know that it's something of an ongoing thing among you guys to hope that Capri finally gets a buff. He doesn't have a gun yet, but we get there one day. Scylla. Similar to Vulcan from last patch, Scylla is the late game mage who suffered from the removal of Raw Tahuti and continues to suffer the new itemization. We're bringing up her passive magical power to help her scale into the late game, while also boosting Sikim's scaling by a small amount. These changes combined should help Scylla feel even more impactful in the later stages of the game, offsetting her rough early game. Quick Learner increased power per stack from 20 to 25 means a total of 100 power instead of 80 now at level 20. Sikim increased magical power scaling from 75 to 80%. 5% scaling. I don't know why Sikkim has that high scaling, put it on the Crush instead, whatever, but it was always annoying to get killed by a Sikkim. I guess you have to be more wary of the Sikkim now, but if she misses a Sikkim, Scylla is pretty damn whack, and I don't think that really changes much. It changes a little bit, but I don't think these changes are what Scylla needs. I think Scylla is forced even more into the pop stomp one-trick pony situation like what she wasn't before. You know, like all these Scyllas in your games that try to hit the ultimate on 5 different targets and miss the first one kind of thing, you know, or get the first one Aegis and then they sit there like, oh, wait, that's all this god really does. Rip. I don't think that really changes. Serqet, on the other hand, changes a lot. Serqet has been a powerhouse in the new season. Her high clear speed and low cooldown mobility made it difficult to outpace in both levels and raw power. We're increasing the cooldown of Deathbane while reducing the physical protection shred. Using Deathbane for damage versus mobility is now a tougher choice, and enemies will now have a large opportunity to counter her while it's down. Deathbane increased cooldown from 10 seconds to 13 seconds. That is huge. That's a lot of cooldown on a bread and butter ability for this god, and I think this will be a massive hit to her. Clear-wise, aggression-wise, everything. Decreased physical protection reduction from 15 to 10%, yeah. That's a thing, but hey. I think her ultimates will also need a nerf for her to fully be in line with other characters. She's still a very strong god regardless, but she is not as strong as before because Deathbane is really everything in her kit. It's what everything revolves around. And not having this secondary escape option after killing someone quite often will have an impact. Your new nightmares, the new god, no longer Serqet. Ullr. All right, hang on. When Ullr was initially buffed in Season 4, skin, we brought a god who had been mostly unplayed, not really, to a much better position, removed his clunkiness, and allowed more players to perform with the god, skin. There was a lot of discussion about the god, skin, at the end of Season 4, but his metrics never really reached a must-nerf scenario. Only a 80+% ban rate and Conquest ranked. With many more changes upcoming, we wanted to wait, because of the skin, and see how successful he would be in the new season before making any changes. So more people would buy the skin before he can. Okay, we anticipated that he would drop naturally. When Season 5 launched, we did not see his performance clearly drop, but this was likely a result of the rise of crit hunters in the meta. Ullr, clearly a crit hunter. Ullr is the #1 crit hunter, guys, did you know? Many other factors could have played a role in this. So to confirm his power level, we waited to see the results after the last round of changes to that specifically adjusted Deathbringer. Ullr did indeed rise back up in his stats. Oh yeah, he was dropping so hard before. Suggesting that Season 5 did not nerf him naturally as much as we expected, and solidified the fact that he was in more need of a nerf. Yeah, no. I thought Ullr was only good when dual lane is a solo lane and ability. Come on. They could have just like crossed out this whole paragraph and been like, we made a mistake here. Ullr is still a difficult god to execute well? What? I have not read this thing yet. I'm not faking this. I've not read this part yet. I only read the changes before. And sees much stronger numbers at high skill levels than in the general population. Yeah, his one-shot potential lower ranks is totally unknown of. He seemed to do much damage, which covered up this aspect in most cases. Yeah, indeed. Blade Arrow and the Hail of Arrows are both seeing a 10% reduction in physical power scaling. The burst provided from these two abilities was giving him so much pressure in lane. With these adjustments, we expect him to fall more in line with other hunters. Right, so... yes, it's partially true, right? So... I think that scaling decreases here. Bladed Arrow from 80 to 70% and Hail of Arrows from 120 to 110% will have an impact because it takes down his one-shot potential. His super easy to confirm X, instant X, is still a problem, and his decreased stand swap, which means that he can leap out of bad situations and put himself in much faster and use his abilities more effectively, is also still a problem. I think these changes are good. I think they, again, take a top-performing hunter down a notch. Not drastically, but they take him down a notch. But I do think that Ullr is not done at this place because scaling decreases only do so much when power items come back in the meta and your overall deal mobility damage anyways, you know? So yeah. Last but not least, Vamana. Vamana's performance in Season 5 has been lackluster largely due to enemies being able to shut down his main source of ability in teamfights. While the healing potential on Colossal Fury exists, the amount of anti-heal options limit how useful he can be. When increasing the base protection provided by Colossal Fury to better help him engage a team even if they build heavy anti-heal. In addition, Colossal Fury has a targeter, allowing players to see at what range Vamana is able to connect his basic attacks. Colossal Fury increased protections from 5 to 25 to 15 to 35 and added a target to indicate the hit for Vamana's basic attacks while Colossal Fury is active. I think the protections values still sound kind of low compared to others. What I would like to see, I mean, especially in New God, we get some free protections all the time if you want to. What I would like to see is the protections getting ramped up higher, but the regeneration part getting a decrease in return. I think that would, overall balance them out more, less dependent on that anti-heal stuff, and, or just making him feel a little more like the giant he used to be in his ultimate form. That's it for this patch. I think Achilles is a bit busted from all we know so far. I'll have to test it out though. I think that a lot of the changes were very warranted. Serqet, Freya, Ullr. I think the weirdest change, the only change that I really have big complaints about this patch was Malice. I think a lot of the item changes were very warranted, and I'm overall very, very happy with this patch. I think we are not completely done. We will probably see some adjustments to Habwa at some point, and there's some other high-performing guards, and I think the new guard will probably get some nerfs. But overall, I'm happy with the results. I think it was a good patch, and it's a patch I've been waiting for a long time. And with that, if you're watching this on YouTube, thank you very much for watching. If you're new to the channel, feel free to click the sub button with the bell. It really helps me out. See you for the next one tomorrow. DukeSloth out. And as I'm making my own outro at the moment, because I'm poor and I haven't made any outro yet, I'm gonna leave you with this. This beautiful face. I'm gonna go. Day 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 day.